Very much, Doctor. Really very impressive, very intuition. And yes, Ethiopian constitution, no question. It's really great. And we really appreciate your work here. Thank you very much. The next speaker is Aydın Özakhan, basic human atrocities in Ethiopia. Photojournalist Jamal Kafis.
I am a U.S. citizen. I was born here some years ago, a long time ago. I won't mention how long ago. But I was born and raised in Baltimore. And after graduating from Howard University, I moved to New York City, where I worked for 25 years, covering United Nations, New York politics, and corporate events. From there, I went to Ethiopia to begin writing a book on Christianity, and eventually made Ethiopia my home, working as a correspondent for Getty Images and United Press International, covering Ethiopia, South Africa, and Zimbabwe. So from 2015 to 2019, I basically lived in Ethiopia, got to know the country. I married a history professor. I fathered 2 children. Basically, my family was set, and we were prepared to come to the States for a few years, let grandma have her time, and move back to Ethiopia and make that our home. We come upon the events of November 2020, and we were pretty horrified by the way the news was reported on the war. Having had relationships as a teacher of photography, having had relationships amongst all the groups in the country, and knowing most of the northern parts of the country, we were pretty amazed at how badly things were reported. So we made a decision that I would go back to cover the war. So over the course of the next 2 years, from 2020 to 2022, I made 6 trips to cover the war in Ethiopia. And what I began to notice is a real disparity in things. I couldn't quite put my finger on exactly what was happening, but as the doctor just spoke about the Constitution and the way things had fallen into place in the country, the Amhara and Afar people suffered tremendously in ways that were not reported in Western media. So, working through these regions, visiting as a correspondent, Amhara, Afar, and Tigray, I noticed and reported on great disparities in the dispersal of aid, the way in which internally displaced peoples were affected or not, the way they were cared for or not, and it was pretty alarming what I saw. Just speaking as a human being, to watch convoys of aid trucks flow into one region unabated, and to visit other regions and not see the same programs in existence. When I visited Tigray, for every IDP camp I visited, I counted at least 3 programs: World Food Program, USAID, the Red Cross, Tigray Relief Fund, and then others on top of that that fed these IDP camps in Tigray. In the Afar region, it was the Islamic Relief Fund and local religious leaders. In the Amhara region, it was the Orthodox Church and local donations, private donations from the diaspora. So this was a cycle that I noticed and I reported on. I visited 19 IDP camps between the 3 regions, and it became apparent that there was an issue with the treatment of the Amhara and the Afar people, as opposed to the people of Tigray. On the flip side, because I was reporting on human rights abuses and atrocities and things something happening in the south with the Amhara and the Gurage peoples in the Oromia region. I noticed that there were these attacks on these civilian populations being perpetrated by, I'll just say, the Oromo extremist movement that were highly organized. They were systematic. They saw certain leaders going in on a local level to different Kebalis to lead, set up structures. Massacres would occur. That Kebali leader would be relocated to a new Kebali. And the cycle persisted on and on and on till you have events like the Tole massacre, where over the course of 10 hours, was it 5,000 people were massacred over 10 villages over a few hours. Highly systematic, highly organized, military units going from location to location to location to do these things. That happened after I was banned from the country. But before I was banned, my last series of reports dealt with the survivors from Olega, who were victims of the OLA/Ethiopian government maneuvers to rid the Oromia region of Amhara people. So I began to talk about this situation in Olega, and I reported on it for Getty. I filed my reports or whatever, and I saw very little movement amongst the international community. Then I took it upon myself to do a series of exhibitions that would travel to expose these facts and talk about these things. And that was before we had that last offensive, before we signed the Pretoria Accords. I went back to cover that, or I applied to cover that, and I started to get the silent treatment, which most of us know is how you get banned from a country. You just don't get a call back about renewing your visa, and you're not given a work visa with journalist permission. So I was silenced in that regard, so I just continued to do these exhibitions. I'm like, well, if I can't speak for them from there, I'll speak for them from here. So I did these exhibitions, and I began to talk to more people around the country and in Europe about exposing what was happening. So that led to more work, more exhibitions, and then ultimately my wife being banned from the country as well. My wife can't even return to her own homeland. Even with her sister who's in bad health, she can't visit. We have to try to arrange for her sister to leave the country to get medical treatment. And we're at this place where we don't know where anything's gonna land. I kind of feel like the more I speak and just do my job as a journalist, the more I might get in trouble. So the last bit of good trouble, and this is not a plug, but I decided that I had to find a home and a platform for the thousands of people that entrusted me with their voice over these 19 IDP camps. So I produced a book. I just finished it. And my wife said to me yesterday, she said, well, you know what's gonna happen next. As soon as this book comes out, my family's in trouble. So there's the moral quandary of what happens when you call out a regime for committing crimes and atrocities, and you still have people in harm's way. So her words were to me to push forward. She says, the truth has to get out. You have to tell the truth at all costs. So that's where we are. My intentions are to still report on the region. I made a trip to Uganda last year to speak to exiled journalists, people who in some cases had walked from Ethiopia into Kenya into Uganda to escape the Abiy regime, and they still had family back home as well. I spoke to a journalist who actually reneged on having his testimony fully told because his wife had been beaten up while she was pregnant by the forces of Abiy Ahmed. So we're in a weird place, those of us who are straddling family here and family back in Ethiopia. But most of our families are like, you have to tell the truth for the millions of people who are being affected by a flawed constitution, a very corrupt regime, and a people who are pretty hell-bent on exterminating